She came to heal after her divorce. She left, pregnant with my husband's child. My name is Anna, and for a long time, I thought I had it all. A wonderful husband, Josh, who still made my heart skip a beat after all these years. Our teenage son, Noah, who was smart, funny, and as kind as a teenager could be. A career that fulfilled me. A life that seemed picture perfect. But perfection, as I would learn, is a fragile thing, and sometimes, it only takes one small crack to shatter everything. It started with a phone call that I never expected. "Anna, I don't know what to do." Kate's voice crackled through the line. Kate, my childhood best friend, the one who knew everything about me, my secrets, my fears, and my joys, the one who had been there for me during the rough patches, just as I had been there for her. But it had been years since we had talked. We had drifted apart when life got busy, marriages, kids, careers, but I never imagined our friendship would end up like this. I don't know where else to go," she continued, her voice hitching with emotion. "I can't stay here anymore. I just can't. I feel like I'm losing myself." My heart broke for her. Kate had just gone through a devastating divorce. Her whole world had crumbled, and she was left with nothing but the ashes. I couldn't leave her alone. "Of course you can come here, Kate," I said without hesitation. "You're my best friend. You've always been family. Come stay with us for a while, just until you get back on your feet." She sniffled on the other end of the line. "I don't want to be a burden." "You could never be a burden," I reassured her. "Come as long as you need. You're family." And so, just a few days later, Kate arrived on my doorstep with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. I welcomed her into our home with open arms. The first few weeks felt like a trip back in time. We stayed up late, reminiscing about our childhoods, talking about everything and nothing at all. We laughed like we used to, shared stories, and drank wine, just like the old days. I was determined to help her through this. After all, she was my best friend. I owed her that. At first, it felt like she was only staying temporarily, but as the days passed, she started to settle in. Her things began to fill the guest room, then the bathroom counter. Slowly, the lines blurred between guest and resident. It was as if she had never left, and I had to admit, it was comforting. I felt like I was helping Kate heal, and in doing so, I was healing too, catching up on lost time. Josh, my husband, welcomed her with open arms, just like I had. He tried his best to make her feel comfortable, offering support whenever he could, but even as I told myself everything was normal, something didn't sit right with me. It started with small things. At first, they were easy to dismiss. Kate would say something like, "Josh, you look really good today," or "I've always admired the way you do that." It was subtle, but I could feel the tension in her words, like a thread pulling tighter every time she spoke to him. The compliments didn't stop there. I caught her more than once looking at him a little longer than necessary when she thought I wasn't paying attention. There was a softness in her gaze, something almost affectionate, and when she volunteered to make dinner on the nights I worked late, I thought nothing of it at first, but as time went on, it started to feel strange. She was always offering to take over tasks I had always done, things I had always prided myself on doing for my family. I convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. After all, Kate was going through a lot, and maybe she just needed someone to confide in. Josh and I had been married for over 15 years. I trusted him. We were solid. But the little things kept adding up. One evening, I returned home from a late meeting to find Kate and Josh sitting on the couch together, chatting about some new restaurant that had opened in town. There was something too familiar in the way they spoke to each other. It felt like they were friends who had known each other for years, not two people who had barely spent time together before. I brushed it off. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I was too tired from work, too stressed from life. But that night, after the house had settled into quiet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My mind kept circling back to the strange tension between Kate and Josh. I couldn't help it. I felt like I was losing something precious, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. And then, it happened. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. I rolled over to find Josh's side of the bed cold, empty. I told myself he must have gone downstairs to work or grab a snack, but when I didn't hear any sounds, my heart began to race. I lay there in the dark, listening. The house was too quiet, no footsteps, no creaks from the floorboards. I couldn't fall back to sleep, so I decided to get up. I padded down the hallway, my feet silent on the floor. As I passed the living room, I froze. The door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I saw them. Kate and Josh. Sitting together on the couch, whispering, their faces too close, their bodies too still. I held my breath, staring at them from the shadows. Kate's head rested on Josh's shoulder, and he wasn't pulling away. Instead, he was leaning in, his hand on her arm in a way that felt too intimate. I wanted to scream, to confront them, to demand answers. But I stayed frozen, watching. I didn't know it then, but that moment would be the first of many that would shatter everything I thought I knew. The next morning, I tried to ignore what I had seen. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. Kate was my best friend. Josh was my husband, the people I trusted most in the world. Surely, I had just imagined things. When I asked Josh where he had been, he looked at me, slightly groggy, and answered, "I fell asleep on the couch. I worked late and didn't want to wake you." I nodded, forcing a smile, trying to convince myself it was all just my overactive imagination, but something in his eyes, something in the way he said it, didn't feel right. The faintest hint of guilt flashed across his face, but it was gone before I could process it. Kate, on the other hand, had no such excuse. She was her usual self in the morning, smiling, sipping her coffee like everything was fine. But there was something off about her too. It wasn't just the fact that she was still here, in my home, living with us. It was the way she was acting. She was avoiding things, simple things, coffee. She used to be a coffee addict, always chugging down at least 3 cups a day, but recently, she had stopped drinking it altogether. "I'm cutting back," she said the first time I noticed, but then I saw her sipping herbal tea in the mornings. I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was trying to change her habits, get healthier. But then there was her clothing. Kate had always been fashionable, well put together, even when she was having a bad day. But now, she was dressing in oversized sweaters, baggy pants, hiding her body as if she were trying to conceal something. I didn't ask her about it. Of course, that would be rude, but it made me curious. The real kicker came one morning when I walked into the bathroom to find Kate standing by the sink, rifling through her purse. She didn't notice me at first, and then, as she hurriedly closed it, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A bottle of prenatal vitamins. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe she had been prescribed them by her doctor. Maybe she was planning on trying to get pregnant in the future. But then she caught my eye, and I could see the panic in her face, the slight tinge of red creeping up her neck. "Oh, those?" She laughed nervously, shoving the bottle back into her bag. "They're for a friend. She's trying to conceive, and I'm helping her out." I frowned, feeling that unsettling feeling creep back into my chest. She had never mentioned this friend before, and why would she be carrying around a bottle of prenatal vitamins in her purse? "Are you sure you're okay?" I asked, my voice calm but my mind racing. Kate hesitated, then nodded quickly. "Yeah, just a little tired lately, that's all." I wasn't convinced. Something didn't add up, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Kate wasn't telling me everything. The next day, I had to go into the office to finish some paperwork. I left early, thinking I could finally get some peace of mind and focus on something other than my suspicions. When I got home that afternoon, Josh was still working in his office. He didn't even look up when I came in, too busy with whatever he was doing. I could hear Kate moving around in the kitchen, humming softly to herself. I went upstairs to my bedroom, and I paused. Something caught my eye. The iPad we shared, the one I used for reading and keeping track of my work, was sitting on the bedside table. It had been left on, open, showing a message that I had not seen before. I wasn't one to invade privacy, but something pushed me forward. I walked over and picked it up. It was a text message between Josh and Kate. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned it quickly. The message was brief, and it had been deleted, but I could still see enough to make my blood run cold. The last line stood out like a flashing red sign: "We need to talk. This can't stay a secret forever." My hands trembled as I set the iPad down. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to confront Josh immediately, demand answers, but I knew better. If I wanted the truth, I had to be smart about it. I couldn't just go charging in like some irrational wife, angry and blind to everything else. I had to be patient, I had to be calm, and I had to make sure I had all the evidence. The next few days passed in a haze. I went about my routine, pretending like everything was normal, but nothing felt normal. Every time I looked at Kate, I saw something different. Every time Josh smiled at me, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. And then, the breaking point came. One night, I poured Kate a glass of wine. I had planned to confront her, but I wanted to see how she would react. Was I being paranoid, or was there something more? She accepted the glass, her eyes widening slightly as she took a sip. I watched her carefully, my pulse quickening. She froze mid-sip, her eyes darted to mine. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice steady but cold. She set the glass down, her hand shaking slightly. "Are you seriously trying to poison me?" she snapped, her tone defensive. I stared at her, unfazed. "You're pregnant, Kate. Whose baby is it?" The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. Kate's face went pale, and for the first time, I saw her crack. Her eyes welled with tears as she opened her mouth to speak, but the words came out in a rush, tumbling over each other. "It happened one night. You were gone. Josh said he was lonely. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I swear, I never planned it." Before she could finish, the door creaked open behind me. Josh walked in, his face pale, his expression unreadable. He didn't deny it, he didn't say a word, but the silence spoke volumes. It was all I needed. I turned to him. "You ruined the only good thing I had left." Josh lowered his eyes. "It wasn't supposed to go this far, but I can't abandon my child." The world around me felt like it was crumbling. My best friend, my husband, the man I had given everything to, and now, they had taken it all from me. But the fight wasn't over. It wasn't even close, and I would make them both regret it. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room had become thick and suffocating, every word hanging heavily between us. Kate stood there, eyes wide, her hands trembling as she fumbled with the hem of her sweater. Josh just stood, silent, a shadow of the man I had married. "Is this it then?" I managed to say, my voice icy, my body trembling with rage. "You're both just going to stand there and let this happen?" Kate's lips quivered as she tried to speak. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I could see the guilt on her face, and the shame that followed. I wanted to hate her, but more than anything, I just felt betrayed. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I swear, Anna, I never meant for it to hurt you. I never thought I'd fall for him." The words cut me deeper than I ever expected. A part of me wanted to scream at her, tell her how disgusting it was to betray me like this. But the truth was, I already knew. She had been planning this for a while, whether she meant to or not. And now, she was standing here, acting as though she were the victim. I looked at Josh. "So, what? This was just some mistake?" I laughed bitterly, the sound of it foreign even to me. "You're both sorry now?" Josh didn't say anything for a long moment. His silence was worse than any apology. The air grew thicker with each passing second. His hands clenched into fists, his face drawn, like a man caught in the wreckage of his own creation. Then, slowly, he spoke. It wasn't supposed to go this far. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but I can't just turn my back on my own child. You need to understand that, Anna. I felt a sickening wave of nausea wash over me. This wasn't just about a betrayal. It was about the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life being shattered beyond repair. My husband, the man I had trusted with everything, had crossed a line I could never come back from. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, my eyes burning. A child? With her? You didn't even think about what that would do to me, to us? Kate wiped her eyes, and I could see her guilt spilling over, staining her face, but there was no remorse in her actions, no apology that could make me forgive her. She had broken something that could never be repaired. I turned away from her, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't stand looking at either of them right now. So, what happens now? I asked, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it before. Do we all just pretend this is okay? Do we act like everything's fine and move on? Josh's face twisted. No, of course not. But I can't leave her. Not now. Not when we're having a child together. His words hit like a slap to the face. I could feel my world collapsing around me. The man I thought I knew, the man I had trusted to build a life with, was now leaving me for her, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I took a step back, my heart pounding with rage and disbelief. You've made your choice, then. My voice wavered for the first time. You've chosen her, chosen your baby, chosen a life that doesn't include me. Josh opened his mouth, like he was going to say something more, but I cut him off. No, don't. There's nothing left for us to say. I didn't even wait for him to respond. I turned and stormed out of the room, my mind a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and hurt. I didn't know what I was supposed to do anymore. My whole life felt like it had been torn apart. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of that house and away from them both. But there was something else I had to do first. Something I had been putting off for far too long. I grabbed my phone from the kitchen counter and dialed the number I knew I'd need. The lawyer's office. The following days passed in a blur of cold, calculated decisions. I met with my lawyer to discuss my options, what I could do, what I had to do, and as much as I hated to admit it, I had to take control. This wasn't just about me and Josh anymore. This was about the life I had built and how I was going to rebuild it from the ashes. When I returned home that afternoon, I felt like a stranger in my own house. Kate was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through a magazine as though everything were normal. She looked up when I entered, a smile on her lips, but when she saw the look on my face, her expression faltered. I think it's time for you to go, Kate, I said, my voice steady but firm. I'm done with all of this. Her eyes widened in surprise. What, Anna, please, No, I gave you a chance, and now I'm done. She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. You need to leave, and I'm having you legally evicted. You can't stay here anymore. Kate's face drained of color, but No, I won't let you ruin any more of my life. I turned and walked out, not waiting to hear her response. The next few days were a whirlwind of legalities, paperwork, and decisions. Josh tried to apologize, tried to justify his actions, but I couldn't bring myself to listen to his excuses anymore. The man I thought I knew no longer existed. I had already started the process of buying him out of the business we'd built together, quietly moving everything under my control, and when it came to the divorce, I made sure I had every right on my side. At the final divorce hearing, Josh sat in the front row, his face hollow, like the weight of his own choices had finally caught up with him. Kate wasn't there. She was nowhere to be found. It was just me, sitting calmly, wearing red lipstick and a smile that was colder than ice. In that moment, I realized that I had taken back my power. I had been the one to walk away with the last word. The next few months felt like they belonged to someone else, someone stronger, more decisive, I woke up every day with a sense of purpose, something I hadn't had in years. My house was mine. My business was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. Josh tried to reach out. Of course, he did, but I wasn't interested in hearing anything he had to say. He had already made his choice, and I wasn't going to sit around and wait for him to change his mind. Kate tried too, in her own way. She called, sent texts, even showed up at my door a couple of times, but I made it clear to her that I was done. She had crossed a line. She had shattered the trust one once held in her, and I wasn't willing to rebuild it. There was nothing left for her in my life. I had contacted a lawyer right away after the confrontation with Josh. It was one of the first things I did. I had learned my lesson from years of trying to be the good wife, the good mother, the good friend. Now, it was time to protect what was mine, my assets, my future, and my peace of mind. The first thing I did was secure my house. I didn't want Josh, my soon-to-be ex-husband, to have any claim on it. He only legally owned 25% of my business, and it was time for him to be bought out, quietly, without any drama. I arranged everything through a third party, ensuring that Josh would be cut out of our finances for good. It wasn't just about the money, it was about control. I wasn't going to let him get away with using me as his fallback plan. I even started making subtle changes to the house, personalizing it in ways I hadn't before. The house had always been our home, his and mine, but now, it was mine alone. I painted the guest room a soft gray, added some modern art pieces in the living room, and rearranged the furniture to suit my new vision of what life could be. Josh didn't understand. He would still show up at the house, thinking he could just waltz back in like nothing had changed. But every time he tried, I shut him out, physically, emotionally, and legally. Kate had been gone for almost 2 weeks before I saw her again. The eviction process had been slow, but thorough. I had made sure the paperwork was all in order, and when it was finally time for her to leave, I had 2 police officers and a neighbor present to witness it. I wanted to make sure that there was no turning back, no possibility of her trying to move back in. It was hard for me to watch. In a way, I knew Kate was lost, broken, and didn't know where to go, but I couldn't let that distract me from the fact that she had played a part in everything that had happened. I watched her pack up her things, her face tear-streaked and pale. She didn't even look at me as she carried the last of her bags out to the car. It wasn't because I hated her, it was because I had nothing left to give her. She wasn't my friend anymore, and the woman she had become, well, that was a stranger to me. Kate, you don't need to do this, Josh had said when he showed up at the door, still holding on to whatever shred of hope he had left. But I wasn't having it. I'm sorry, I said, the words sharp, but this is where you're going to have to let her go. Josh, you're the one who made this mess. Now, you'll have to clean it up without me. And just like that, he realized there was nothing left to salvage. The final divorce hearing came soon after Kate left. Josh had hardly spoken to me in the time between, but I could feel the tension between us every time we crossed paths. The day of the hearing, I wore a red dress, red lipstick, a calm smile. Josh didn't even look at me when he walked into the courtroom. I could see the hollowness in his eyes. He wasn't the man I had married anymore. He was just a shell, a man who had destroyed his family, his life, and his future. Kate wasn't there. Of course, I wouldn't have been surprised if she had gotten some sort of warning, though. I was sure she was feeling the weight of her actions, just as Josh was now, though it came far too late for either of them. As the lawyer went over the details of the settlement, I could hear the strain in Josh's voice every time he spoke. He was bitter, resentful, but it was clear to anyone in that room that he had lost. When it was my turn to speak, I simply stated the facts: my house, my business, and full custody of my son. I had no interest in what Josh did with his life from here on out. He had made his choice. And, like I had told him the night of the fight, I'm done. The paperwork was finalized within the next few weeks. and I could finally breathe again. I didn't have to think about Josh, or Kate, or the life that we had built. The house was mine. My son's future was mine to decide. And I had the power now, power I didn't have before, power I never realized I'd been giving away for years. When I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw the woman who had been willing to forgive, to take the blame. I saw someone who had fought for her life, someone who had finally taken control, even if it meant losing the people she thought she could trust. They thought they were building a new life together. Turns out, they were just giving me a reason to start mine. The final hearing was behind me, the dust had settled, and I was finally living in the aftermath of everything that had happened. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I had nothing left to lose. I had already lost the two people I thought I could never live without, my husband and my best friend. But, in a way, I had gained so much more in return. I walked through the house every day, taking in the new space that was now my own. It felt different, lighter, almost as if it had been waiting for me to claim it. It wasn't just the fresh coat of paint or the furniture rearranged in the living room. It was the sense of ownership that came with it. I wasn't just living here anymore. I was building something. I started to take more time for myself, something I had neglected for years. I went to yoga classes, met friends for coffee, and even signed up for a cooking class, something I'd always wanted to do but had never made the time for. My son, Ethan, noticed the change in me too. His eyes softened when he saw me laughing, enjoying myself in a way I hadn't since before everything went wrong. "Mom," he said one afternoon as we sat together at the kitchen table, "I'm glad you're happy again." His words were simple, but they meant everything. I had been so focused on the pieces of my life that had shattered, so consumed by the pain of betrayal, that I hadn't even realized how much of myself I had lost. But now, I saw it clearly. It wasn't just about what they had taken from me, it was about what I had given away, without even realizing it. And now, with them gone, I could take it all back. Josh never reached out again, not after the divorce was finalized. I didn't expect him to. The last time I saw him, he looked like a ghost, standing in front of me with nothing left to say. He had tried to make excuses, to explain himself, but I had already heard enough. His silence in the end spoke louder than any of his words ever could. As for Kate, I had no idea where she ended up. She didn't call again, didn't try to find a way back into my life. I didn't feel sorry for her. She had made her choices, and she had to live with the consequences. I had my own life to live now, a life that didn't include her. I took a trip with Ethan that summer. We went to the coast, just the two of us. We stayed in a little cottage by the sea, and I remember sitting on the porch at sunset, watching the waves crash against the shore. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could feel the weight lifting from my shoulders. I could see the future opening up in front of me, filled with possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to imagine before. The life I thought I had lost was gone, but in its place, there was something far more powerful, the life I was building for myself. Years from now, I'll look back on this time in my life and think about how everything changed, how it felt like I had been broken, but in the process, I became stronger than I ever thought I could be. They thought they were building a new life together. Turns out, they were just giving me a reason to start mine. And in the end, that was the greatest gift I could have ever received.